Atlanta wasn't supposed to look like this. Not after the hype, not after the promises, and definitely not after all the talk of a new era. Yet here we are, staring at a franchise that feels like it's coming apart at the seams. 1 week ago, the Falcons were still selling hope. Now, they're selling chaos. It all started with that humiliating 30-0 beatdown at the hands of Carolina, a loss so brutal, so embarrassing, that it didn't just sting, it rattled the entire building. Fans didn't just see a defeat on the scoreboard, they saw panic written across the faces of coaches, players, and front office staff. The reaction? Desperation. Pure, unfiltered desperation. Coaches pointing fingers. Executives scrambling for quick fixes. A team searching for scapegoats instead of solutions. And the first sacrifice thrown into the fire? The kicking game. That's right, after getting demolished in every possible way, the staff chose to single out the easiest target on the roster. But here's the truth, this isn't about a kicker missing a field goal. This isn't about special teams at all. What we're witnessing is something much darker, a franchise spiraling into full-blown crisis mode. And the moves they're making right now don't just look reactionary, they look like the actions of a team with no plan, no vision, and no stability. This is what I call scapegoat season. And if you think it ends with one firing, one demotion, or one roster move, you're in for a shock. Because this storm is only just beginning in Atlanta. The spiral didn't stop with one scapegoat. It got worse. Young-Ho Koo, a kicker who has been one of the most reliable Falcons in recent memory, suddenly found himself in a battle he never asked for. The front office brought in competition during the off-season, Parker Romo. At first, Romo looked like a hidden gem, nailing every kick in Week 2 against Minnesota. 5 for 5. Perfect. For a brief moment, it felt like the kicking game had been solved. But football is cruel. In Week 3 against Carolina, Romo missed 2 field goals during that nightmare shutout. The Falcons didn't just lose, they got humiliated, 30-0. And instead of addressing the real problem, an offense that couldn't move the ball, couldn't finish drives, couldn't even score a single point, head coach Raheem Morris delivered a line that left fans furious. He said, "If Romo had made those kicks, we'd have lost 30-6 instead of 30-0. Think about that. You just watched your offense fail for 60 straight minutes, and your coach is blaming the kicker because the margin of defeat wasn't slightly smaller. That's not accountability. That's deflection. And it's insulting to every fan who sat through that disaster." Then came the next knee-jerk move, signing Ben Sauls off the Steelers' practice squad. A rookie with barely a resume, who went 5 for 6 in preseason, suddenly being presented as the answer to a franchise that couldn't score a single point. That's not problem-solving. That's desperation dressed up as decision-making. And here's the part that breaks your heart. After that loss, Parker Romo stood in front of the media, the cameras, the microphones, the reporters, and shouldered the blame. He said, "Obviously, it was not good enough and I have to be better for the team. When they call me out onto the field, I need to go out there and make points. Today, I didn't do that." That's a kicker taking responsibility for an entire team's collapse. That's a young man carrying weight that doesn't belong on his shoulders. And it's crushing to watch. Because Romo wasn't the reason Atlanta lost, the offense, the play calling, the execution, the game plan, all of it collapsed. But in this era of scapegoat season, Romo became the face of failure. And if you thought it stopped with the kicker? Think again. The Falcons fired their wide receivers coach after the shutout, too. As if moving on from a position coach fixes an offense that couldn't complete a pass, couldn't block, and couldn't score. It's like your house is engulfed in flames, and instead of calling the fire department, you move the furniture around and pretend you've solved the problem. This isn't strategy. This isn't accountability. This is organizational dysfunction at its worst. This isn't just about a bad Sunday. This isn't even about one loss. What we're witnessing in Atlanta is a franchise exposing its soul, and the cracks are wider than ever. Because when you lose 30-0, you don't just lose on the scoreboard. You lose trust. You lose belief. You lose the very foundation that holds a locker room together. And instead of confronting that truth head-on, the Falcons' leadership decided to take the easy way out, find scapegoats. Kickers. Position coaches. Anyone but themselves. And that's the real sickness here. When accountability flows downward instead of starting at the top, the culture rots. You can feel it. You can see it. The players aren't just competing against opponents anymore, they're competing against the fear of becoming the next fall guy. Think about the message being sent. Ben Sauls, the rookie they just signed, hasn't even kicked in a real Falcons game yet. And already, he knows the truth: one bad afternoon, one missed kick, one gust of wind at the wrong moment, and he's out. Done. Another name on the scapegoat list. How do you perform freely under that weight? It's like asking someone to kick a field goal while standing on quicksand. And it doesn't stop at special teams. After Carolina, they fired the wide receivers coach, as if the man drawing routes on a whiteboard is the reason the offense couldn't cross midfield. Moves like that don't inspire confidence. They inspire paranoia. Because if the organization is so quick to toss people aside, then every player, every assistant, every staff member is left thinking, am I next? That kind of culture doesn't produce winners. It produces survivors. Guys playing not to lose. Coaches calling plays not to fail. And in football, hesitation is death. Here's the tragedy: this team isn't devoid of talent. The roster has playmakers, athletes, guys who could be difference makers. But talent means nothing without leadership that knows how to channel it. Right now, what Atlanta is showing us is not leadership, it's desperation disguised as discipline. And for Falcons fans, this cuts deeper than just football disappointment. This is about the people you've trusted with your Sundays, your emotions, your hope. This is about whether the organization you've bled for is even moving in the right direction. Because when a franchise cares more about optics than solutions, more about blame than accountability, more about headlines than honesty, then the fans aren't the only ones being betrayed. The players are, too. And that betrayal leaves scars that last longer than any shutout loss. At the heart of this mess is something bigger than field goals, bigger than shutout losses, bigger than scapegoats. What's really at stake here is the integrity of the organization. The Atlanta Falcons aren't just fighting opponents every Sunday, they're fighting their own identity. Because here's the truth: the talent is there. We've seen flashes from this roster. We've seen playmakers who can change games. We've seen the fire from fans who, year after year, pack stadiums, wear the colors, and live and die with every snap. The city of Atlanta has proven it can support a winner. The people are ready. The passion is undeniable. The foundation exists. But none of that matters without leadership. Real leadership. Not leadership that hides behind excuses. Not leadership that swaps out coaches and kickers as a distraction. Real leadership means accountability. It means being willing to stand in front of the fan base and say, "This one's on us. We have to be better." Right now, that's missing. Instead of addressing the deeper issues, coaching philosophy that isn't working, roster construction that lacks balance, and a culture that seems built more on fear than belief, the organization keeps reaching for quick fixes. But here's the thing about quick fixes: they never hold. A carousel of kickers won't solve systemic problems. A fired assistant won't repair a broken culture. This is why fans are frustrated. This is why the atmosphere around the Falcons feels heavier than just football. Because deep down, everyone knows the truth: until leadership has the courage to look inward, to own their mistakes, to face the hard questions, and to commit to real, sustainable change, the cycle will just continue. More reaction. More panic. More finger pointing. And the saddest part? The fans deserve better. Atlanta deserves better. The players deserve better. Because no amount of passion in the stands can cover for a lack of vision at the top. Until that changes, the Falcons will keep spinning in circles, chasing fixes that never fix anything.